daycare, so they're going to be out. But yeah, overall. Yeah. How are they doing? Good. That's a change from Florida, right?
How is that even possible?
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. If you need anything during this event, feel free to get up. There's plenty more cookies, chips, everything. The back room is out this door and to the left. So feel free to do that if you need to. My name is Dena. I'm the director of the Knoxville Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all for coming on this super cold day. I know schedules are kind of up in the air with school getting out early and everything. So we appreciate you taking the time to come here. Basically, we have a monthly lunch and learn over different topics just to help our business members with stuff that they maybe don't have time to find themselves, if that makes sense. So if you have any topics that you would like to see at a future lunch and learn, we have a couple months planned out, but feel free to let us know. We love feedback. We love knowing what you want. So never hesitate to reach out on that. I want to give a big thank you to Iowa State Savings Bank for providing the lunch today. So, so the format for today, how it's going to work is we have some curated questions that I will be asking our panel up here. If you have questions during the discussion, feel free to raise your hand and ask them. This is kind of a informal, we want you to learn what you need to learn. And then we will hand out, you have some handouts at your table. I have a Knoxville content calendar that might be helpful for you. It's a tool that you'll be able to walk away with. And then at 1 o'clock, depending on your schedule, you're also welcome to stay in your tables, and we will have a speaker at each of your tables for you to ask even more in-depth questions. Maybe you have a marketing problem that you're facing. That's just the time for you to kind of collaborate as a table and ask your speakers questions. So let's get started. I'll introduce our panel. They sat in a different order, so we have Hoke from Iowa State Savings Bank. He's been the marketing director there since 2000. Prior to that, he began his community bank marketing career in North Iowa. Among his responsibilities, Dave oversees the bank's product development needs, public relations, advertising, print and collateral marketing, materials development, website and electronic banking services, and assists various community organizations with their marketing efforts. He currently serves on a number of different board of directors, including Knoxville Cancer Scholarship Foundation, the Education Foundation, Bravo Concert Series, and the Knoxville Civil Service Commission. Next, we have Mike Benson with Peachtree Brewing Company. He is the Director of Marketing, supporter of wholesale, retail, and taproom sales. He is new to the Midwest, having moved here from DC in 2017. His past experiences include various in-house and agency positions for marketing and creative direction, which have provided opportunities to build a skill set both at traditional and digital marketing. And then we also have Dena Fisher from Knoxville Hospital and Clinics. She's a creative and results-driven marketer and communications executive with 28 years of experience. She's accomplished in all aspects of strategic communications, marketing and sales, media and public relations. She has a diverse marketing background, ranging from healthcare, senior living, home health and nutrition, chemical manufacturing, private consulting, transportation, human services, public health, and construction. She attended Iowa State University, and she is the Director of Marketing and Public Relations at Knoxville Hospital Clinics and has been there since 2017. And she is the current president-elect of Iowa Society for Healthcare Marketing and Public Relations. So if you want to welcome them all. One last note I didn't mention before, we are trying our live stream. So that's why we have this computer in the middle. This is a trial for today. So nobody is actually watching it except for my staff. we're seeing how it goes, but basically the thought is we understand people are busy, they can't always come over the lunch hour. So you will be able to sit at the comfort of wherever, watch our program, and then we'll also have a system where you can go back and watch all the archives. So we're trying that out this time. Hopefully, we will have that for our upcoming lunch event. So stay tuned for that. So let's get started. Are you guys ready to answer some questions? Okay, awesome. So the format, we kind of broke this up into 5 different troubles that people have with marketing training specifically. So the first one is just a lack of time. I hear that a lot. People don't market, they don't have a plan because they feel like they don't have the time to do so. So you 3 have an advantage because your full-time job is marketing. You can focus on that all day, every day. At a small business, a lot of owners don't have that time. Obviously, they won't be able to put as much time as you do on marketing, but why is it even important, in your opinion, to set aside any small piece of time during the day to focus on marketing?
Okay, I'll start. Well, I would first say that most people, only 1 in 5 small businesses actually have a marketing plan, period. That's kind of a signal, so you're not alone if you don't have one. Don't worry about that, but I would say that a lack of a marketing plan really hinders your business growth. So if you do put one in place, I think you can immediately start seeing some sales growth. And some of the tips, today I provided a handout, a toolkit to take home, and in my responses today, I'm just going to refer to different pages in there. So it's going to be a kind of a quick way to do that. But my recommendation is put 15 minutes every day to marketing. But you should always be marketing. Marketing means talking to your customers, tell them what services you have, and keeping the customers that you do.
I look at marketing somewhat as an umbrella over everything you do. Okay, and it's not just advertising, it's not just product development, it's not just managing requests for donations. It's an umbrella over everything that happens every day in your organization, and it especially includes your frontline people. In the old days, we used to have these fancy organizational charts, remember, and the executives at the top and the frontline people were at the bottom. Well, what I learned is when you flip that upside down, the real power in the organization is in your frontline people. And if they aren't informed and aren't part of the same plan that you're putting together because you have the authority to do so, your plan's going to suck.
I would add to that if you're not focusing on your marketing, your competitors will be. And when you start asking yourself why they're doing better than you, that might end up being part of the answer. It's one of those things where you can try and control the image, like he was saying. Dave was saying about how it's kind of an umbrella over things. It does affect production. It affects salespeople. It affects lots of things. And kind of controlling that image and being the one that controls that narrative is extremely important.
So we're going to hypothetically say that everyone in this room has made a plan. You have this awesome plan, but sometimes the hardest part is actually carrying it out. So how do you recommend carrying out that plan? I know you mentioned, spend 15 minutes a day focusing on marketing. Do you have any tips when it comes to carrying it out, actually doing the plan that you put in place?
I want to take you a step back because I'm going to assume not everybody has a plan. And I would say that the first thing you have to do is look at yourself and your business. Do a really deep dive into your business, looking at your sales. If you look at page 4 of your handout, it just gives you those things to take a look at. Think about those things because you may not even be thinking about what is your growth objective. Is it to really add a different service line? Are you trying to maybe open a different store location? Is it just to increase sales, a percent of sales? What is that specific thing that you're trying to accomplish? And the other thing on page 5, it's called a brand identity wheel. And what that is when you're looking at yourself, what do you want your brand to really represent? It means, what's your voice? What's your brand colors? All the things that really represent who you are and what's your mission. If you get those things on that will and really define those well, then you really have your marketing ready to go because you're going to be having a good sense of who you are.
So it's kind of getting back to the carrying it out part. I think sometimes people get a little overwhelmed by the magnitude of what it might be. So the Peachtree, what we've done is so the term we use is rocks for like kind of other words for goals. And we have, those goals are set up by quarter. So we have a list of first quarter goals, and then those goals go down to various departments. And we kind of start there. So we have like, here's what we want to do. We also have like a 10-year plan and a 5-year plan and a 1-year plan. But as far as like immediately carrying it out, we have a set of quarterly goals that we are striving to have complete before the end of the first quarter this year. So that, again, still sounds a little daunting perhaps, but one of the next thing we did after establishing what those goals were establishing how we were going to measure it, which is critical. Because if you're not measuring it, then you don't know if you reached the goal. And some goals will be like yes or no, are they done or not? But for the most part, if you're talking about sales objectives, you really need to have a very clear idea of where you want that growth and how much you want that growth to be, and even down to specific markets. So now that let's say you've gotten your goals, you have your scorecard set up, so you know how you're going to reach those goals. At a weekly level, we have to-dos assigned out to one person and one person only. That way they're accountable to them. And that list may range, that might be like 10 to-dos on every department's list, and each person may have 3 or 4. And then one of the things that we do amongst ourselves is we hold each other accountable. So if I'm supposed to do something for one of my coworkers and I don't get it done, their job is to hold me responsible even if they work for me, and vice versa. So basically breaking it down from going from bigger to smaller and having it be like very easy things to do within a 1 week time, or maybe even in 5 minutes worth of time. It kind of makes it more manageable and much more bite-sized. Then you find yourself like doing a whole bunch of little things that all add up to the big thing you want to accomplish.
The phrase, how do you recommend carrying it out? I think if you've got a really good plan and you've done a really good job creating your plan, it's going to illustrate already how you're going to carry it out. Whether it be the use of media or community relations or public relations, whatever it might be. If the goals that are inherent to your specific plan, especially the number of small businesses that are in our room, is really impressive. I would find it daunting to try to really be a good marketer when I have to worry about so many other things. But if you have a good plan and you put some effective thought into it, how you're going to carry that out is also going to be part of your mindset. Okay, you should probably get that on the phone.
So let's specifically think about, you have a event that you're going to market. It's in your plan, you have it there. How far in advance do you recommend starting on that? So let's take a local example of nationals or living windows. You know it's coming, but starting 2 weeks before is not sufficient. So,
Right. If you do an annual calendar year plan, and immediately at the beginning of the year, you might identify the primary events. But I think what you have to ask yourself too is that event going to be profitable for my business? Does nationals bring people to your door? They're going to bring you fee income. All right. Just because it's the nationals, it's got this magnitude of the nationals, but is it good for your business? Whether you participate or not. Living windows can be identified the same way. Do you need to participate and for what reasons? That might be under public relations or community relations. It might not be one where you're going to sell product, and it might not be profitable, but you've got a heart there. Okay. I think when you plan an event, try to be really selfish and try to avoid some distractions. It could be seasonality distractions. I think when you say the holidays, everybody's so busy. Okay, well, do I want to have one of my events I'm going to be reliant on around that time if my products and services don't inherently meet that target during that time of year? So if you can avoid really distractions for your primary events that you really want the communities and your customers' attention, try to be really selfish and identify that right time for you and your staff.
Mike, do you want to touch a little bit about Peachtree does a lot of events?
Oh,
Have
yeah.
you guys prepared for that?
I was going to say to add on to what he's saying, like Peachtree 100% definitely sees more feet on the door just when nationals are happening. So where the bank, you may not be giving as many loans that week. For us, we take so much of our like third quarter budget is all happening, or she's like, yeah, third quarter budget is all happening right there during nationals. To be honest, and this isn't something that we like spent a ton of time on, but we started planning for 2019 nationals 1 week after 2018 nationals are over. We basically, everybody and it's overwhelming at times. So we all just basically like, let's not even talk about it for a few days. Let's move on and get some other long list of things we've been neglecting done. And we came back the following week and we wrote out a spreadsheet of all the things that we did well and all the things that we thought we could improve upon. And we kind of let that sink in for a little while. And we haven't honestly really done a ton the last couple of months, but we already kind of had a game plan for where we knew we needed to improve. And then basically everyone gets a chance to kind of think about that in their own time. My first meeting about nationals is the middle of February with Kendra with the racetrack. So I'll be starting my planning for nationals in February. In earnest, we will probably start planning taproom stuff probably about 3 months out. Knowing Susie, maybe a little bit before that, before she tells everybody what she wants to do. Like, so for example, like our taproom can only hold so many people. So it's not really effective for us to worry about that necessarily because it pretty much lines out the door sometimes as it is. We're trying to figure out how to use the root cellar more. So that's one of the main things we're trying to brainstorm how to do is how to do events over the root cellar this year. Because there's only some fast we can put here to begin with. Or do we need to like revitalize the patio, things like that, just to give you a couple ideas of things that we're planning for now, because there's just no way that you can do those things the week of or 2 weeks before. You have to be planning 1 to 2 months out for something like that.
Now, you mentioned a calendar of events. That is absolutely critical. We put our calendar of events together, and depending on the extent of the event, for one thing, we have a 55 plus health fair. That involves coordination with a lot of people in the community. So we've got to plan that several months ahead so that everybody's geared up and they're ready to go. And our advertising is placed in time, where it might be a small thing that we're going to come out and participate in a local community event. It's a 1 day, a small event. We kind of know our setup and routine. It's just really plan it, put it on the calendar, and a week ahead, we're ready to go. But let's say I want to hand out promotional items. That could take 6 weeks before that gets delivered to me. So I know I need to be getting my advertising and getting my promotional items ordered well in advance of that event. So really depends kind of on what that event is.
And I think you said a good word, which was routine, and kind of knowing what your focus is and creating that routine beforehand. So then the week before, you're ready.
When you look at events, if you're really successful at it, you become a nationals, or you can become a living windows and be on the top of people's mind. Well, that business in June, gosh, they started doing this 5 years ago, last year, and they want that same again and again. So kind of make that part of your goal, perhaps.
We have tourism views in the Bermuda Triangle, and those are things we've been working on for years.
So let's get into more conversation about your target customer. So you kind of touched on this before, but before you can understand who your target customer is, you have to understand who you are as a business. So did you want to go into that a little bit more? Can we go on to target customer?
Well, I like that question.
Yeah.
Understand who you are as a business. I want to share an old school, because I'm old. It's called a SWOT, and you may have heard of this. SWOT analysis, okay? And it's an analytical way to take an in-depth study of who you are as a business, and include your employees when you do this. You set aside a time, and there's one rule when you do this: you have to be honest and sometimes challenging yourselves to fill in the blanks. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Opportunities and threats. Some of these things can be internal, and a lot of times they're external. For a farmer, a threat can be the weather. What does he do to mitigate that threat? And what do you do as a business? But if you can do an internal SWOT analysis, and it is somewhat old school of a business exercise, but I think it applies to small businesses, I really do, and to Main Street. It's a small room with you and your crew, and you sit down, and hopefully you're going to learn from one another something fresh. One of your frontline people may see something every day that you don't know. Okay, and then as you get this list, you hope you have a long list on which one's most important. Okay, and who you are as a business and answering that question, these rise to the top, and then you forget the rest. Focus on the few that you find, the top 3 perhaps, or the top 2, or maybe just the top 5, depending on your size of business. Right? But you'll find the answers have a way of saying, oh gosh, I need to do this to avoid that. And I need to build on this because it makes me money. Okay? So a suggestion.
I brought something as a tool for you to help thinking about your target customers, and it's on page 7 of your handout. And it's called the sieve shaker method. How many people even know what a sieve shaker is? Anybody? If you've been around construction, you kind of know what that is what they do is they take dirt, or they're taking sand or rock or whatever, they put it in the top, and it's a mechanical shaker, and it just keeps shaking out. Each layer has a different hole in it, and so pretty soon the particles start falling down, down, down. So what this method is, when you're using it for your identifying your target customer, think about you're going to dump in everybody at the top. Well, who's marketing to everybody? If you are, then that's probably mistake number 1, because you really have a refined target audience. And the example I have here is like if you're in the shoe store business, and we want to say, how do we attract people, and who's really our target customer? So these are real statistics that I have on here, and it looks at the gender of your customer, your age, their income level. Do they follow trends? Do they own a smartphone? Do they have kids? And pretty soon you start shaking it out, and you're going to see who is really your target customer. Well, for shoes, 52% are women. You know that I thought this was surprising. They're 34 years and under is actually the #1 buyer of shoes. Their income level is $35,000 to $125,000. They live within 30 miles of your store. They love trends. They own a smartphone. They have kids, and they seek out online reviews. So right there kind of gives you a lot of clues about who you're going to be marketing to and how you're going to do that just based on that. So if you use this principle for your business, it will help you then target and make sure you're spending your money and your time targeting the right people and invest your money wisely.
To take it back a quick step, I know you guys are familiar with the term mission statement, but I think, and I'm not critiquing anyone's mission statement here, but I think a lot of people's mission statements are usually not effective. And I prefer to think of it in terms of a purpose, and then a niche, and then values after that. So one of the things that Peachtree did back when I kind of first started back in the fall is we really just sat down. We had all the leadership people from the company sit down in a room, and this probably took us like 3 or 4 hours. And we just kind of hammered out, like, what's our purpose? Why do we exist? And it's not to sell beer. Like, that's what we sell, but that's not really our purpose. And I think some people assume that what they're selling is what their purpose is, and what is supposed to be like their passion and what drives them, but it's just not. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see this all in the back, but we even put together a cute little graphic for it, where our purpose, we decided, was to enrich our community. And I know, like, for sure, Megan, that's one of the main things she did by opening a tap room downtown Knoxville, is she wanted to make sure that there was something for people to be able to help that community thrive. And then our niche was creating thoughtful beer experiences. And every word there is intentionally chosen. It's particularly the one thoughtful meant a lot to me, because we want people to enjoy craft beer. We're not trying to have them buy beer by the bucket or something like that. We're trying to sell an experience. And when someone comes to our tap room and they get to talk to Joe, who's our brewmaster, or one of the other brewers, or a bartender, and get to discuss like what makes this stout the way it tastes, what adds that flavor to it, something to basically promote conversation and be thinking about, as opposed to just kind of guzzling it, so to speak. And then I guess the point of what I'm getting is I 100% agree with what they just said, especially the SWOT analysis thing. But when you're making your decisions and you're prioritizing things, when you're going through those types of practices, everything comes back to, does it meet our purpose? Does it satisfy our niche? And every decision you make needs to come back to this. And that way, when Joe or Sally in your company starts going off and going a little rogue and doing their own thing, you can kind of bring them back to the center, which is like, here's our purpose, here's our niche, that's what we decided our strengths and weaknesses are. Let's get focused again. So I think, again, since you guys don't necessarily have dedicated marketing people, focus is really kind of one of the main things I think we're going to be hammering away at today. So if you start getting sidetracked, you're gonna end up losing opportunities and potentially losing money. So bring all of your decisions back to something like this, even if it's just a cute little graphic. While your decisions are made based on whether or not they satisfy that, you'll keep yourself focused.
One second.
And let's talk a little bit more about that target customer too. So let's pass that around. You can pass that
Oh,
around.
yeah, that's fine. I can send PDFs out.
Yeah. So you
I
can-
did not bring enough for everybody.
So you kind of talked about the shoe. You have your niche customer if you sell shoes. Where do you find that data? Where can people start? Where do they start to even understand who their market is?
Internet. Internet is very helpful.
Ask Google.
There are so many data groups out there for all kinds of business, basically any business sector that's out there. You can go out and they have analyzed consumers. They know pretty much who the sales are coming from nationally, and then you can refine that to your particular market. So that's one place I would definitely start.
Especially by population.
Yes.
Yeah, you can ask Google pretty much whatever you want. It may not give you the right answer the first time, but you can refine your search. We're a little bit lucky because we work with a distributor that we can get Nielsen data from. So like, for example, I can tell you that roughly 55% of our sales are off-premise, which basically means high B and things like that, packaged beer as opposed to draft beer at bar. And I can tell you from there that it is overwhelmingly a female purchaser. So like, we know that most people buying our beer are actually women, believe it or not. So that's
Cool.
no, it's just that's kind of how it's done.
And look
And
in,
we-
and look in-house too,
Yeah.
because look at your own data. You know, at the hospital, we know what our patient base is. So we know that we're skewing 70-some% plus, 55 plus. So I know that that is a big population group that I can talk to, but I may have we have a really strong orthopedic program, and I know what that demographic area is, starting at age 45 and there. So then I'm going to target that particular group for that service line.
I mean, I can tell you, I don't have all the numbers memorized. If I did, I could tell you exactly what the age ranges are for our customers. And I can also tell you what their loyalty is too. Like, so for example, that 25 to 34 range is not a very loyal customer for us anyways. They I believe it was something like 6 different brands of beer a week, something like that, or maybe it was 4, but either way, it's not like they're buying the same thing over and over again. They're buying a variety. So kind of having that information, not only do you know who you're supposed to be going after, but then you also know what the threat is if you try to go after them, that they may not want to keep buying your product over and over again. So then you can start making decisions based on like how much variety do you need in your product? Do you need to pitch your product in more than one way so that you can kind of hit them here and then hit them again over here with a different message for that product? But again, I would just say internet, do the research, see if you can find somebody else who's written white papers on it. There's lots of like stuff out there that may be buried in a PDF, like 7 pages deep on somebody's website, but it's all really good information.
One thing I'll add too, if any of you have social media, you have demographics, who's coming to your page. If you don't have Google Analytics turned on for your website, get it turned on because it tells you the town that the people are coming to your page from, how, their gender, if they're looking at a smartphone versus a desktop, all of that stuff comes, you need to be thinking about that when you're making your marketing.
One last thought I might share is understand our culture and our community. Okay, we're Knoxville, alrighty? And when we get great pride in knowing we're Knoxville and demographics within our community and how they can benefit your product or service and be profitable for you. And I made one note here, I don't want to forget to share past generations of our community. They may or may not live here, but you may have a product or service when they visit here for whatever reason. It could be homecoming. They're very prideful of the community, and if you've got a way to reach them and offer your product or service, they're going to be loyal customers too. Because they all think Knoxville rocks.
So let's move on to kind of the third issue that sometimes people have with marketing, and that's just the lack of funds to do so, or they think that they don't have enough money, but they might. So in the end, why, in your opinion, does it actually save money to have a plan in place?
Well, it's going to illustrate the resources you need to employ to carry out your plan. Okay, It's probably going to involve local media to some extent, but the magic world of the web that I know many of the people in here utilize with Facebook and some of the other tools that are out there. I'm not a Facebooker, all right, so I'm not near an expert to speak on that. But the website at the bank is more of a portal to get to your internet banking than it is really a tool to talk about checking loans. It's on there, but it's a monster for me to stop you to teach you about that. But typically, if you're a customer of ours, it's a portal for internet banking and watching out for what your accounts and so on. But I guess that's all I should know.
I think one of my favorite acronyms is ROI, which stands for return on investment. And if you have a plan, chances are you are measuring your ROI. If you're measuring your ROI, then you know whether or not that what you've done is effective or not. And basically, it just cuts out waste, which saves you money. And quite frankly, don't be afraid to spend money and have it not work, because if you can learn from that, you still have learned something. Like, I'm serious. Like, just go ahead and spend some money. It may not work. Like, somebody here may find that sending out direct mail postcards is more effective, and somebody else may find that doing a Facebook ad is more effective. But if you don't try it and measure it and figure out what your ROI is, and you should know exactly how much it costs, and you should try to know exactly how much money you made from it. And then, quite frankly, if you needed to spend $5 to make 20, you would do it all day long. So figure out what that opportunity is and measure it, and if nothing else, you'll learn something and you'll cut out waste.
And my point would be the power of the people in this room. All of you can cross-promote your businesses, and I think that's one thing that'll provide you one of the biggest return on your investments. I was talking in a different community it's a motorcycle repair shop, and they're trying to kind of get some more business going on. At this time of the year, what are you selling? It's really hard to sell motorcycles, right? So what they're doing is they have a merchandise shop part of their store, and they're really trying to push that this time of the year. And they were trying to find out even better ways to do that. Well, there's also another business in town that sells coffee, and they wanted to put some of their coffee into that merchandise store because they could sell some coffee and things. And so it was just kind of that cross promotion between different businesses. And when you're having major things like nationals in town, wow, what an opportunity to say, hey, and have you gone over to, they're having this over here at P Street. They're having this over here, specials. What if you just had a special sheet and everybody had that in their store locally, and they said, hey, we have specials everywhere, so that everybody stops someplace else. It's a great kind of way to cross promote. And that really costs you nothing to do that. And look at all the power of that advertising.
And that leads into a question, actually, in your experience, what are some ways to partner or collaborate that are cost effective? And kind of talking about nationals, one thing that we did last year at the chamber was if you had a special going on or some service during nationals, you could submit that to us. We collect all that information, and then the racetrack promotes that page, if that makes sense. So we're looking into more of that for this year, maybe using some push notifications on the app that they have. So stay tuned. That's a great way to collaborate and work together. But do you guys have any great examples on that? I think one collaboration that I love in town is the coffee connection in the hospital. Having that satellite location out there. I mean, there were some costs that had to go into that, but that's awesome. Yeah, for both.
I have a specific example. So
Yeah.
up in Des Moines, next to our tap room, there's a place called Climb Iowa that's about to open, I think, in the next week or two. We are going to offer a 10% discount to anyone who comes in with a Climb Iowa membership card, preferably after they've worked out. And hopefully after the shower too. So we are going to have flyers in their location that basically say that if you're a member and you bring a membership card to literally right over here across the parking lot, the Peachtree's tap room, that you're going to get 10% off. They're going to have some flyers in our tap room, and that's just one very specific example about how we're collaborating to make sure we're basically sharing business as much as we can back and forth. And we've done that with other things before also. But that's just one very specific example we're doing right now.
How does a business know if they're using the correct channels of advertising?
I think it comes back to ROI. I think if you're measuring, and again, you may not get the idea of which ones are most effective right away. So for example, postcards, you need to probably send out, at least in my experience, somewhere 5 or 6 of those, once a month or once every 2 weeks, and they need to kind of add up. It's kind of like the other term I've used is like eyeballs, and you need those eyeballs to start adding up for people to remember who you are, and sometimes that takes as many as like 6 to 10 looking at your message, whatever that is. It may take as many as 10 times for somebody to really have that sink in. So I would definitely make sure that whatever channel you're using, give it enough time to work, understand how long it probably needs to work before you start judging it, but definitely measure the ROI, and that's kind of how you know whether or not it's working. Before that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you can touch on that right now. So.
Well, I don't want to cut that.
No, you're fine.
Okay, so one of the other questions was, what are some of the cost-effective ways of business to make sure their information is available to the public? And I think it's also, what are some cost-effective ways that you can be getting information back from the public also? And only reason I was just asking about that because it kind of relates to the channels. So back to Google Analytics for a second, that is free to implement, and you can get a disgusting amount of information from it. It makes you wonder, like, how much information are other people gathering on you? When you're on Facebook and you've ever Google searched something, then all of a sudden, like literally 5 seconds later, that ad shows up on your Facebook feed. You know what they're getting from you. So, and with Facebook, and just specifically, I would say specifically Facebook is a very cost-effective channel to get your information out. People spend more time on that little screen, like several hours a day on Facebook. It's going to come to a point probably in the next few years where they're going to spend more time on Facebook than watching TV. And let's face it, even if they're watching TV, a lot of people are still on their phones while they're listening to TV, but their eyes are down here. So I personally found that Facebook can be extremely effective, and it's not very expensive. You can tailor very specific campaigns to zip codes, to demographics. You can pick age ranges. Maybe you shouldn't be able to, but you can pick age ranges and genders. You can pick whether or not they like craft beer or not. For us, that's one of the things that we can literally type in and say, we want people to like craft beer in 50309. And then we can send out a targeted message specifically to that group. If I want to send something out for one of our new brands, and it's about coffee stout, I can send something out. People enjoy coffee and craft beer in a specific zip code. And you can do that for basically as little as a couple of dollars a day. So we usually run some of our Facebook ads somewhere in like the $2 to $3 a day range. And then we'll run it for like 2 weeks, see how it goes, reevaluate it, and then maybe try something different. But it's, as far as advertising costs go, that's about as cheap as you're going to get for a daily spend on something. I would highly, highly recommend looking into Facebook advertising.
I have a question on that. How do you talk about your ROI. How do you determine your ROI on that? I mean, that's the biggest thing we see, using social media is we do a lot, but we don't know, we can tell people are hitting it or whatever. But it's hard for us to, determine.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, it's also starting with how you tailor the social media. So we have some general feel-good stuff, and we have plenty of that, but every once in a while we'll have one that has a specific call to action. So for example, if we're trying to sell tickets to Bermuda Triangle, we can measure how many people, like if we pop that ad up there and then all of a sudden like 6 people then ask for tickets, then we can generally correlate what's happening and why. But it comes down to calls to action, and that's probably more detail than we need right now, but I would definitely look at the content of what you're putting up there, make sure that there is something specific and actionable that you're wanting people to do. We also have, like, we keep on a spreadsheet, like comments, shares, like likes are fine, but they're not really the measure of much. The ones that really matter more to me are the reshares and the comments. Basically, it's engagement versus I just clicked like and forgot about it. So we kind of measure those engagements, and you can, even on Facebook ads, you can add a button if you want to click on something. So there's other things you can do there too. But we kind of have our own little algorithm, so to speak, of measuring how something's effective. And again, it's really more about engagement. And while we're talking about social media, the other thing I would also add is if you're not commenting back, then you're also not doing it effectively, because part of it, and this does get a little bit more time consuming, but part of it is having a two-way conversation with your customers. It's not just shouting it out there and letting them say how much they like it and forgetting about it. It's actually important to go back and thank them. Thank you for liking that. We appreciate you came in and tried our service. It's that type of thing that makes them feel like they're getting personal attention. And then you start talking about having loyal customers that are going to come back 2, 3, 4, however many times.
I would guess too that the consumers are being trained outside your industry to get that kind of performance.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you're not meeting with the getting from other industries, they're not gonna like it.
How about the 10% off you're gonna give on the new organization, next to the tap room in Des Moines? How are you gonna measure that? Are you gonna put a separate button in your cash register?
Yes, we will have so we have several different discount buttons already, depending on what people are coming in with. And that one's gonna get its own separate button, so we'll know exactly how many times people use it. So even if it's a cash transaction, we'll know if they use that button or not. And then we'll also be able to look at the overall sales and average ticket prices, things like that, and kind of figure out, like, we already know what our break even is gonna be on something like that, and most likely we can even sell one beer and it's fine. But we'll be measuring all of that, yeah.
The other thing about Facebook, almost all the digital media today is you probably know who your competitor is, your strongest competitor. Well, you can actually target geofence right around your competitor so that you're serving ads up to their customers. That's what you want to do because you want them in your door too. So that's another thing that's very effective in doing that.
I agree.
I actually heard an example not too long ago of a golf course in Des Moines that was geofencing the golf course closest to them. So when Bob was over here golfing at this golf course, this other golf course was putting ads on his phone. So that's how you can get to that point. During nationals, I know some businesses, they geofence just that 1 mile radius around the track because get that specific when it comes to ads.
When you talked about loyalty to brand, younger generation is not loyal to, they're not to health services, they're not to all the different companies out there. So, go after those people that are going to your competitors. That's really something. And then one example I'm going to give about channels, and that's on page 16. And just to give you an example of how you then take your marketing plan and decide what channel you're going to use to communicate with people. Again, my example is you have a shoe store, so you have different audiences that you're trying to get. So your objective in the first campaign is you want to increase your inbound marketing sales via your website. So right there, you know that your consumer, women love to buy shoes. So we're putting young women. Our marketing message is going to be around fashion because they follow trends. And we're going to use a digital marketing display ad because they're shopping online for their shoes. So I'm using the internet. So if you look over on the top ad, that's the ad I would serve up digitally on the internet to that audience. But throughout the year, I have other objectives that I'm trying to accomplish in my campaigns. One of the second campaign is I need to get 50% growth along my teen shoe line. So I have a whole different audience. I have teens. I know they like cool, high energy things. And I know they're on social media and they're on Instagram. So I'm going to serve up the second ad to them and look at my message units. We got Cool Max insoles. We have energized rubber. They're comfortable. That's kind of the ad. And the third one is, let's say, how many people have inventory sitting around and need to get rid of it? Your new inventory is coming in and you need to get something. So in this example, you needed to sell out an inventory within 45 days because your new inventory is coming in. So this is an ad targeting seniors where now my channel is going to be the newspaper because seniors are still reading the newspapers. So I put a print ad in the newspaper. Same kind of similar look to all three ads, but they're going different places, different messages, but they keep my brand. They keep my brand feel, look throughout them.
And I think that leads right into the next topic, which is just a lack of focus. So those ads to me are very focused. They're consistent. They make sense. If you see all three of them, you can tell that's from the same business. How do you ensure consistency? How do you make sure that what you're pointing out, people look at that and they know that that's coming from your business and it all makes sense? And yeah.
Keep everything on brand, like kind of like that flyer that's going around a little bit with the Richie community and thoughtful beer experiences. make your decisions based on the things you've already decided. And if that needs to change, then you can make a higher level decision of whether or not that purpose or niche needs to be updated. Like for us, that's going to last that way for a while. But you know, if we needed to change it, then we would. But I would have everything get measured back to whether or not meets that criteria. And even if it's something as simple as like making sure that you're using consistent colors or fonts, typefaces, make sure that your logo is being used properly. You'd be surprised if somebody else is like adding your logo to something. Don't let them stretch it out. Like don't let them like make it. Don't let them touch it at all. Even the amount of spacing that goes around your logo is important. So just kind of make sure that like the visual is kind of the same, even if the slogan or the headline's different or if the content's different, like she was just saying, which is perfectly acceptable. Just make sure visually that they look like they're supposed to be sitting next to each other. And if you can hang up 3 ads on the board next to each other and they look like they're supposed to go together, then you probably got some consistency. If you don't, one of them is probably wrong, if not all 3 of them.
But in the magic of time, things just, despite the magic of the web, marketing typically takes time into consideration as well. You're always planting seeds, and they may not bear fruit right away. So 6 months from now, they may. Next year, they may, but a consistent message and a consistent brand over time is going to fall under that definition as well.
I think the other thing I would add too, and this may work out great for you guys since you maybe don't have like a marketing team, is that review everything. Like if you have somebody else that's even at an agency helping you out, just make sure you're actually taking like 3 minutes to review everything before it goes out. That way, at least one person in your organization is looking at it to make sure it's consistent. Don't just assume that someone else is going to have your best interest in mind.
In content, the web has trained people that less is more. USA Today line of publishing, less is more. So if you're grabbing attention and trying to create action, it typically isn't going to take a story. Oh, when I say story, anytime you get an opportunity in your business, we have very good local media support with covering local news. Okay, if you've got something that's newsworthy, reach out and share that as a news story. You can get a lot more effective, and then perhaps support it with some advertising. But there's some good resources here in town to utilize and have good relationships with, because they want your news. They want to promote local activities and local businesses and success stories. So remember the news is your friend in that regard.
Yeah, I would just reiterate that if you have anything that is newsworthy, don't assume that people are just going to know about it. You have to tell them about it.
Actual formal press releases work.
Oh,
We sent out a press release for the partnership that we have with Back Pocket, since they're going to be taking over some of our, like we're basically outsourcing brewing some beer to them because we just literally ran out of tank space. So we sent out an actual formal press release and we're on the news that night. Like, and they came out, and not only were we on the news that night, but they actually crafted the story how I asked that they would, which was that we were trying to release some new brands. So they ended the story with saying, and Peachtree is doing this because they're releasing cold brew coffee stout and OG Orange Goes. And I was like, yes. I was like, you can't go to Hy-Vee and get it right now. But man,
They're going to be looking for
talk
it.
about planting seeds. So like we started getting emails like that night asking us when those beers are going to be available. So send out a press release and use it to your advantage. And a lot of reporters don't want to be told what to do, but if you can kind of tell them like, here's a couple of things that here's a couple of points that we would make, maybe they'll do it. And that way they're kind of giving you a little bit of a win-win there. And quite frankly, they're getting like their 90-second spot in the news too that they were assigned to do. And if you can keep those press releases interesting, you're much more likely to have somebody pick it up.
So getting into our last number 5 kind of issue is just that lack of differentiating. So it's really easy to follow trends and it's important to follow trends, but at the same time, you have to stand out. So why is differentiating so important? This is kind of a twofold question. And how can businesses ensure that they are being unique?
That's a great question.
I love this question
I love this
too.
question.
I love this question. Well, one is being unique, that consider it your secret sauce. Why are you completely different from the other businesses that you're competing with? And if you haven't really thought about that, definitely focus on that area. And that'll really help you a lot. And I just kind of went through some examples of things that I see companies really doing this well. And a couple things that came to mind to me was cane socks. It's a new kind of sock. It fits your foot. It's a size 13, it's a size 8. You know, when you go to Walmart, you buy a pair of socks and you got ranges 7 to 12, and you know, it's a uniform sock. Well, what they're doing is really pushing socks for your feet. So I thought that was really good. Untucked shirts without the tail. I mean, that's what they're specializing in. It's very unique. It really helps sell their brand. And you've probably heard about Gillette lately. So I'm talking about their competitor, which is the Dollar Shave Club. Dollar Shave Club came out to really hit Gillette head on head on their marketing. And what they're doing is it's every month. It's like a month club. You get in a new razor. Everybody needs a fresh razor once a month, and it's low cost, right to your house. How convenient is that? So they've really taken a bite out of Gillette and doing that. Simple is the company. It's the new 21st century kind of banking. You can't ever go to a bank. There is no bank to go to because it's all online banking. Your ATMs, they have those physical ATMs you can go to, but your checking and everything is all mobile. There is no bank to go to. So they found a niche. They're really promoting themselves that way. So those are just some examples. My Pillow. Why do you want to buy My Pillow? How many's heard of My Pillow? Have not seen an ad for My Pillow? Because they have a unique foam that fits your head. I don't know if it's any better product than the foam that you get in the other pillows, but they have really found their niche, and so now they're doing that. And then they're doing their spin-off with their pillow top comforters. So better than anybody else, at least according to them. So
I think the local businesses, especially small business, has an opportunity to be different than your competitors by not just think, I don't want to be another gallon milk. I don't want to be just like everybody else. So let your emotions run free, let your creativity come alive. And I heard a story this week from this young lady right here on the corner. Just did a Facebook post on shoveling snow and got responses. Okay, they thought that was cool how they made fun with their staff and got out in front of her customers and the community in the area, which is shoveling snow, and it got spun some talk. So I mean, you can think of ideas how to get your staff involved and differentiate yourself. And I only see that then. Did you see what they did yesterday? Yeah. You're hiring us.
Yeah.
No, honestly, that was a good story. That was good marketing.
Yeah, what you're doing might not actually be unique, and that's fine because oftentimes the emotions are in the how and why. So if you can figure out where your differentiating factors are in the how and the why, that is oftentimes more valuable than the what. Unless you're inventing something brand new, then the what is definitely the most important thing.
I have a question for our group before I forget to ask. There's a business in downtown Knoxville on the square that's been marketing the next seasonal spending time and hasn't been spending a dime in the media for it. And already is planting seeds for people to spend money and stop and see them before the date is over. Who is it? It's Candy's Flowers. She's got her display in the front window for Valentine's. It's been up there since January. Every time Dad drives by there, oh God. Yeah. But it works.
Yeah.
And just that image, she's planted those seeds by illustrating the service that she has and can provide locally. Just stop in and take care.
Living Windows is not the only time you can use your storefronts.
Right on. And that's good old school stuff. It's not spinning it around.
You basically have a billboard right in front of your sidewalk.
So,
And I like what Mike said about, you might not be selling something different, but if you look at the trends for retail specifically, everything's online, yes, but people are getting away from shopping malls and they want the more local, downtown, small town feel for retail. Why? Because they're getting a good experience. So that's how they're differentiating it. They're selling stuff that anyone can buy online, but they feel good walking into the store. People like that they're nostalgic for it. So that's another great way to make sure you're differentiating yourself by every time somebody walks in. They're getting that
Quick
experience.
way I think of that is high tech and high touch. Okay, you might use high tech to get them in your door, but then they want to be treated like it's 1952. All right, they want to feel good about spending money, and then that opens up a door to that fancy word of intrinsic value, that people even pay more for a product and service if it makes them feel good. If it thinks they make them smell good, look better, okay, they'll pay more for it, and that percentage, if you will, can improve extremely rapidly.
So just to wrap up with this question portion, it might seem daunting to get started on a marketing plan, carrying that out. Any last minute tips on how to get started?
Well, I shared this one thing, because I've been married to that since early in my career, because I've seen it work. And it's just a business exercise. You don't have to use this. You might use it as an idea to create something of your own. But get a bit analytical and get a bit armed with your line of thinking, because it's your business. It's your fee income. It's your life. It's your free time. It's your full time. So take ownership of it and love it.
I would argue that, like, make a plan to do something like literally next week. Like, talk to your key people, your key employees, your key people that you trust. Pick a time next week, budget yourself like an hour or two, and go through some of this stuff with them, and don't put it off until next month or next year or whatever. Like, do it next week and just get started. And some of it is just as easy as just going through this analysis, and there's plenty of materials online where you can look up like how to run a SWOT analysis meeting so you can like keep the meeting kind of time effective. And don't overlook like setting goals, setting to-do lists, and setting metrics that you can measure those things. And honestly, don't plan on having it be like awesome the first time you try to do it. It's not the kind of thing that you're just going to get right first time. It's going to take some practice, and you may look at your goals 2 weeks from now and go, oh, man, those were not correct, and just well, then change them. Or your to-dos aren't working out because like there's other things that are inhibiting you from doing them. Change them too. The whole thing can be very fluid, and really, I think the most important thing is really just to kind of commit to getting started doing it.
And I just want to leave you with one last tool. That's on page 15, and I just gave you 6 steps. Put together a quick and easy marketing plan that you can use, and then just build upon that from year to year. Because start out something that's realistic that you can accomplish. Don't get overwhelmed by trying to develop a big marketing plan that you're never going to be able to accomplish and deliver.
Talk to each other. Like the more that downtown Knoxville and the surrounding area, like the more of each one of you guys does better on your own, you're bringing more business in for everybody else. And that's going to keep adding on top of each other. So I would definitely suggest if you've got questions and you want to talk to me or Dave or Dena, I'll be happy to provide my information. I'll be happy to provide my thoughts on it. Like maybe I can't give you like a full day worth of work or anything, but I can certainly shoot off a 5-minute email. I would be more than happy to answer questions or give advice as whatever you guys need, I'm available. But do that with each other too. Like you guys, the more that you kind of compound this, the more successful everybody's going to be.
Nonverbal communication speaks louder than verbal. Okay, you give great customer service, and then they walk in and you don't. Or we're really friendly, and they walk in and everybody's frowning. Okay, so the magic of nonverbal communication can be your friend or your foe. Always remember that lesson from a friend along the way.
Well, thank you. Let's give our panel a hand. So one thing we wanted to make sure from a chamber standpoint was every session that we have this year, you come away with a tool to help you. So we've put together 2019 Knoxville marketing calendar. Basically, we went through and we picked out some bigger events that happen during town. This is by no means comprehensive. If there's something on here that you think, or that isn't on here that you think is missing, let us know. We'll continue to add to it, do a new one every year. But it just maps out month by month some stuff in town you might want to pay attention to, kind of helps you plan that out in advance. Feel free to, there's slots on here for all the days, for every day of the year. So let's say National Ice Cream Day, and you feel like you should have a promotion, write it on here. It'll help hold you accountable because when you write it down, you're more likely to do it. So we'll pass that around.
Ice cream.
But before we get into a little bit more Q&A, once again, thank you for coming. We won't have an actual lunch and learn program in February because we'll have our annual meeting at the end of the month. So stay tuned for more information regarding that. Once again, if you have any topics of interest, please let me know. Thanks for sponsoring lunch, Iowa State Savings Bank. If you're interested, if your business is interested in sponsoring lunch, get a hold of me or I'll probably get a hold of you. So now we're going to break into small group stuff. If you need to head out, pick up kiddos, that's completely fine. If you want to get some one-on-one feedback, if you have questions, stay at your table. We'll have our speakers be around to answer those. So I'll have these at the door so you can grab one when you leave. But thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.
Can I join your table?
Come on over.
No, I just have my stuff all over the place. Okay. But also, explain ideas, very nice, Dave.
Yes.